And we're live. Hey guys, thanks for joining
Hi,
us tonight.
happy to be here.
Let's see, we've got 14, 17 people in the chat with us tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, into the early birds.
Hey guys.
Yeah. So this should be another fun conversation. I was telling people today, there were people asking about it, and it was really cool that, that the last time we just got together and just started talking, and I'm really glad we recorded it because it's really reached a lot of people. A lot of people said they got so much goodness out of different parts of it. So that was really neat to put out there. So thank you all for
Yeah,
doing that.
it was inspiring. We kind of did it on the spot, and you weren't even ready for us to record, eh?
I had no idea. I was like, sure, we'll just capture this great conversation because usually they're pretty good. And off it went.
Yeah,
Off it went. Yeah.
it's nice.
The
I mean,
rest is history.
that's why we're here, right? We're the three of us in our own way are here to serve in what ways we can. So if it resonates with people and our message is worth listening to, hey, happy to do this. So thanks for everyone for speaking up and joining us. And
Yeah. Yeah, appreciate that. So Kyle, I kind of wanted to give you the reins a little bit on tonight's conversation because you kind of had the inspiration on what you wanted to where you wanted to take us. So I'm gonna let you blast this off.
so how does it work with the live stream? Do you have people actually giving you questions?
Yeah, I mean we can
Okay.
absolutely take questions. We've got 29 watching right now. We've got a live chat going, which you can pull up on your phone or wherever if you want to see that chat and interact with people. Um,
Oh, yeah?
you just you would just pull up the live stream video and you can pull it up. But yeah, I'm looking at it. We've got Peggy, Mary, Laura, Kaden. We've got Wiz Noses, Neko, Andrew, Christy, Aaron. Got the whole gang here. Hey guys,
So,
thanks for joining us.
well, I'll let you navigate that if that's cool, because I'll
Yeah,
probably get preoccupied and then I'm not that good with multitasking in that regard.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start.
What about the title of tonight's call?
Yeah, it's I mean, for those that don't know me, I work as a psychologist, and I started out doing a lot of trauma processing, trauma therapy, EMDR, sensory motor psychotherapy, these things where information stored in the body, people get hijacked by the body, and then the bottom up approach, as we call it in psychology, the bottom hijacks the cognitive aspect. And then there's the top down approach, kind of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, talking about things, sorting them out, and that's the top down approach. And so historically in psychology, there's been kind of a top down approach to working through things and a bottom up approach. And one of the biggest areas I see missing is the spiritual side, the metaphysical side, the consciousness side. And that still is in the background. It's not even really acknowledged in the psychology field. You don't learn about it in grad studies. Psychologists don't talk about these things. And then when you look at the world stage right now, I think, well, for the people watching this show, they're spiritually minded people. And I would say the majority of people watching your shows or watching my stuff or connecting with any of us, they probably have this general term that they resonate with, and that's we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And you can unpack that in so many ways, right? But we're spiritual beings having this physical experience. And then you look around at the world, and I find there's a lot of hypocritical spiritual people. And I say that with caution because I'm not trying to offend anyone, but at the same time, this this is kind of a platform today where I want to just speak freely. I don't want to speak as though I'm talking to one of my clients or I'm going to offend somebody, because I want to stand in my light a little bit too. And I feel like I have to have a stronger voice. And I feel like I have to challenge my profession as well for some of them to stand up and realize that this is a war of consciousness. This is a war of the dark trying to play with consciousness and manifest what they want, and the light trying to play with consciousness and manifest what they want. And I feel like so many people have fallen off the spiritual wagon, you could say. You know, they've stopped meditating as much, they've stopped praying as much, they've stopped contemplating as much, they've stopped standing on that bridge where they've got one hand in the physical world and one hand in the metaphysical spiritual world. And they're focused just on the illusion. They're focused on all the matrix revolving around COVID. And so I thought it'd be cool to have a chat, what we all did, around our ascension process. How's that going? How are we doing with that ascension process? How are we doing individually, and how are we doing collectively? Because where we're going is collective consciousness. It's group thought. It's us aligning to a level where telepathy will kick in. We'll actually be telepathic because we will be in the dark or in the light. And I find so many people aren't seeking that right now. They're focused on the clown shows. They're focused on all the COVID related stuff. My wife and I were just chatting over dinner how so many people have completely forgotten about recycling, because now that it's COVID, it's like, oh, reusable cups, you can't use them. And it's just like trash it. The world's a trash can again. When just a year and a half ago, everyone was recycling so much and using reusable cups. And so I find that there's this real lack of awareness that we are these sentient, aware, observing beings trying to advance our own spiritual evolution through advancing our own individual portion of consciousness. But that is tying into the greater consciousness. And a lot of people aren't looking at that greater consciousness, what they're tapping into, especially when thoughts become things. And if people's thoughts are focused on the stress and COVID and masks and separation and all these things, that's what we're going to get. We're going to get more duality and more separation. And that's going to impact our individual and collective ascension process.
So why do you think that happens? Do you think it's just because people are vibrational match or they're not being as disciplined in their focus, or like what do you think is causing people to be?
I think a big aspect of that is fear consciousness. I believe we have such a strong programming inside of us that fear consciousness gets activated. And I mean, we're running old ape bodies. Sure, we can crystallize this amazing machine and open up our chakras and flow energy through what we're tapping into, but most of us are blocked. I know I'm blocked in some areas, and I'm working on that. But I think on the subconscious level, within our unconscious mind, we have these deep, dark fear programmings, especially when, if you look at the law of one, 2/3 of the population, or, decades ago, 2/3 of the population, well, hundreds of years ago, I guess, would be from Maldek or Mars. If that resonates with people, that a lot of our soul groups that have come here are from those two planets, which were affected by war. And so we come with this fear consciousness deep inside of us. And then all the manipulation over the years and what's happened for eons, I think we have this deep, dark fear programming that gets activated, and it hijacks us. It hijacks the sympathetic nervous system, shuts down the frontal lobes. We have cognitive dissonance for a lot of it as well. And next thing we know, we're just running on programming.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the beginning, what you said about opening up and speaking bluntly, like I think that's truly the ticket for how we push forward past this. Is we need to, I mean, we did our song decode show on Sunday, and it was all about one of the songs we broke down was I forget the name of the title. It's something. It's a masquerade or something like that. It's a masquerade by Earth, Wind, and Fire. I believe is the name of the song. But just breaking that down and how it's more than just this mask that we're wearing in this COVID time, but it's sort of God's sense of humor of putting a spin on. Not only do we have to take off these physical masks barriers, we have to take off all of our masks. We have to take off all of what we're hiding from and what we're preventing from coming out, what we're trying to filter and not say. But I do want to say that with this crew, you'll definitely be welcomed with that sense of authenticity, because it's very much one that we've lost a lot of people when we've been authentic in the past, and it's really refining this, because we have to be aligned with the truth, and we have to be aligned with authenticity, and we can't be hiding things, and we can't be beating around the bush for people's feelings. We can't be you know, not having conversations about things just because it might offend someone. So I applaud you for stepping forward and doing that, because I think it's so vital in that, for sure. And then on the topic of kind of where we are, you know, it's very much the fear consciousness. It's very much that programming that's it's so deeply embedded. And we spoke a little bit about this in our last conversation about how the cabal and those who recognize that that fear consciousness can be latched onto and steered around, they don't think that they lost this. They think that that fear consciousness, that programming, is so deeply embedded into our system that years down the road, they're just going to be able to come back in and take advantage of it again. They think this is just a little setback for them to have a minor setback and then come back in and do it all over again. So it's really up to each and every one of us to recognize where these, I see these fears like these little loops that we have kind of like in our fabric, the fabric of our soul. They're these little like tears that can be grabbed hold on, and they can be steered. It's like where reins can be fit. So you can be kind of steered and directed. And if we don't let go of those loops, if we don't let go of those things that can steer us around, then we're just going to be right back in it. And that's what they're counting on. So yeah, I mean, it really comes down to that personal responsibility of saying, you know, I can't rely on the external to do my inner work. I really have to take responsibility of that and say, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to let this whatever, steer me around, you know. And it comes back to ultimately it all. I love
Goes
the
back to
exercise.
victim consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. Just that idea that things are happening to us.
And that itself is a big topic. You know, victim consciousness can be really triggering for some people to hear. I'm a victim, or you know, that really happened to me, and you know, that person did do that to me. Yeah, that's life. You know, and not to undermine someone's experience. When someone goes through something horrific, sure, like empathy and compassion and unconditional positive regard is critical. But if someone is just steeping in their victim consciousness and they're not looking for ways to grow through that and face their shadow and integrate and transcend things, then they're not making progress. They're not advancing themselves spiritually in the sense of evolution. They're stuck.
And eventually seeing it as an opportunity of something that's happening for you, and that it's, you know, a time or an experience of expansion. Because that's what victim consciousness is having this idea, this notion that everything's happening to me and I don't have control over it, as we're waking up to realizing that we're, in some sense, God incarnate, that we do actually have control and that we get to choose what the outcome is and what we do with it. That's the most powerful thing. Because if we don't do anything with it, well, it'll just show up again, some other, you know, different places, different faces situation.
There's a cycle again.
How about now?
Yeah. So within measure, I would say we don't have full control in this body, in this form, because there is our higher consciousness that is sort of already set a few things in motion. We've agreed to learn a few things, and so they're going to come across our path, and we'll keep cycling around that path until we've finally learned and gone through it. Which our ego likes to step in and try and disregard that. It's like, no, you don't have to do that, and just ignore it. It'll go away, and then it comes back a lot stronger. It just keeps coming back stronger and stronger and stronger. But yeah, it's really getting away from that victim mentality, because ultimately that path, whatever's being laid in front of us, is trying to steer us into the position of the highest expansion. So the highest probable expansion, because that's all infinite consciousness wants to do. It just wants to expand and grow. So
Expansion
it's only
is a key word. Yeah.
Yes. So it's only going to lead us to that place of the highest potential, wherever we can expand the greatest. So even if in a particular moment it might not seem like, why am I going through this shitty experience? Like, why does this shit keep happening to me? Well, because you ignored it 100 other times, and you've got to learn this lesson, because when you learn this lesson, you get to go to this step, and then you get to unlock all of these things. And it's still ultimately that trajectory to the ultimate expansion. And it always is. It's always leading us that way. And so it's the quicker we can get to that point where we're just listening and we're just in the now, we're truly present. And that's why meditation is so vital, and that's why spirituality is so vital, because when we can really connect with the all, when we can really connect with the one infinite creator, with God, then we're always led to that place of highest potential, always to that place of abundance and growth, because that's all God wants us to do, is just to grow and just to be creative little beings, just to create and expand, which is amazing.
But something you said there is such a key point that I think some people maybe underestimate or don't know how to tap into it, and that's that expansiveness. Like we, as humans, we have self-awareness like animals. Well, animals have awareness. We have self-awareness. I know I'm an I. I'm separate, or I appear separate, right? And then there comes a point when we realize we're not totally separate. We're actually in this together. There's some sort of energy between us. There's consciousness and things that we tap into and interact with. People start to see synchronicities and cognitive shifts and those different things that show them there's something more going on. Somehow the metaphysical is playing with the physical. And I find for a lot of people, they don't know how to connect with source energies. They might go, oh, okay, I should learn how to meditate. And they might meditate and try and listen to just a sound or something where they focus their mind on. But they don't try and see how they can take that connection point and connect bigger. So I think meditation, prayer, contemplation, meditation are three main techniques that people can use to connect themselves, to plug themselves into the universal consciousness, whatever it is for them. Guides, angels, God, creator, Buddha, Krishna, Gandhi, Jesus, whatever you believe in that has some consciousness you'd like to tap into. I think that's where people can they can play with that and just try to expand themselves to connect with those outer sources of consciousness. And they'll start to receive information. They'll start to see things manifest in their daily lives. They'll start to see synchronicities. They'll start to see interesting situations that they're in, and they'll go, whoa, that doesn't make sense. That's because you're talking to the universe and it's talking back to you now. And I think a lot of people don't play with that enough. I mean, this is such a great time to play with that energy, because there's so much energy. We're so polarized, positive and negative. There's so much potential energy in that middle right now that if people get coherent in their thought and clear on their intentions, they can tap into a lot of energy right now and get a lot of guidance.
I think a lot of people don't even know where to look or where to start. Like I know for myself on my own path, oh man, this was like, I guess 6 years ago. I said to my spouse, I need a deep spiritual connection. And I don't know how to describe that. I don't know what that is, but I need it and I cannot have it. But I was looking at it from him. And so he was dumbfounded, and really deep down, I was actually looking for it from myself. I didn't realize this obviously at the time, but I had to voice it. And then that's where I went inward, and so did he. And we started doing our own spiritual growth on the inward. But I wasn't raised religious. I didn't have any kind of spiritual people in my family, no cookie aunts or anything like that. And but I always felt that there was a higher power of some sort, and this was the burning desire that kind of was fueling me forward of what is this. And then I went on this tangent of metaphysical stuff, and I reached out to a woman to teach me like mediumship and psychic skills and stuff like this, because there was something else and I couldn't figure out what it was. And it was just the connection of higher self or source or whatever you want to call it. But I think that there's so many people now that are understanding that there is a larger frequency or a higher power, and they're not even sure where to start, like where to ask. And that's why your work is so powerful, because you're bridging kind of more like conventional like structure, but there's so much more, especially with a spiritual aspect to it. But people just they don't know where to start. But I think that there is, unless you're surrounded by people like that, and like we touched on last time, sometimes it's like a lonely path where you're just, you're out there thinking like, am I the only one out here? There's only, a handful of us. Are there many out there? And I think that there are. It's kind of like popcorn, people waking up all over and have been for some time, but not connected quite yet, not quite ready yet to connect the grid.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguably, that's how I put it, is the grand deception, the grand conspiracy that ties them all together. And we're like kind of deepest in the veil, or we were at least. It's starting to fade away, but we were deepest under this deception, under this conspiracy for the longest time. But the whole point of everything that organized society tries to do is to take us away from our connection with God, with divinity. Everything is designed to pull us away, pull us externally, pull us, keep us in constantly in noise, constantly churning, always in that survival mode. Everything's designed, we're traumatized from birth, we're pulled out of the womb, our umbilical cord is cut too early, we're spanked, we're thrown onto a metal table under bright lights, and the trauma just continues from there. And then we're thrown in school, and we're told we shouldn't dream, we shouldn't imagine, and all of these things.
Focus, get on
Yeah,
task, stop
right,
dreaming, stop
right.
imagining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just constant. So everything is designed to take us away from that ability. So we're about as far away from it as they could possibly do. But I see that as a sign of how powerful we are, because no matter how hard they tried, we're always coming back to it. And that's where, like Kyle, you mentioned all of these different masters that have graced this earth, and they've taught this way because it's the one way, it's the one story, and it's the same one that you can find written in the stars. It's the same one that you can find in all ancient texts. It's the same one that has been told over and over and over again. And it's this path to ascension. It's how do we tap into this physical body? How do I acknowledge that I'm here on this physical plane for a reason, to experience physicality, to truly experience the wholeness of physicality, but utilize this body to connect both the physical experience and the etheric realm. And that's that link. That's what we're supposed to do, is to unite the Mother Earth with the Father above, and to be that bridge, to be that divine child, to link the two. But everything in organized society is designed to take us away from this simple truth. And so if we don't if we don't like acknowledge that, or now that we're kind of coming back into that awareness, just naturally, because I think we're shifting, I think astrologically we're shifting, I think things are happening to where it's becoming a lot harder for this veil to be kept on us, because we are on a sort of clock, and God does sort of shift things on a timeline to kind of keep it interesting. It does shift in that sort of way. And so that's where, like, the Mayan prophecies of 2012, and then this last great conjunction and things of that nature happening, like, I see each of those instances as another little activator, a little push out there to say, like, this veil is not going to work. This universe, this creation is not designed to let those darkly aligned entities win. They can't succeed, because if they did, it's just going to lead to destruction. Like, that insatiable thirst of that inclination is unsatiated, and it will always continue just devouring until everything is gone. That's just
Yeah,
the
there's no
nature of
growth
it.
from there.
No, there's no growth. It's a necessary piece as a learning mechanism, but it cannot be allowed to succeed. And so we've hit this point now where God, or whomever, has stepped in to sort of rewrite some things, and make sure that the cycle doesn't get too far out of band. So we're starting to step into that, which I think is why those practices like Kyle's putting forward are becoming this was more sought after, and why it's so vital that we really get into these practices, because the quicker that we can step into it, the quicker we can kind of get through this little difficult period that I see coming up. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be a tumultuous little period, but the more that we can step into it fully and access our Godhead, access our divinity, then we have nothing to fear, and we'll just get right back into it.
I think a couple things on that, Justin. I mean, these are both kind of juicy topics, but one is, I believe we're gods in training. We are creators in training, right? And we are our own individual portion of consciousness having this experience. But I think sometimes we have to understand the level of the experience we're at. We're in grade 3. We're in third density of light experience in a third dimension of physicalness. And so we're in grade 3. So I believe that we are somewhat limited, even though we can be fully activated as whatever we can possibly be, for those that can achieve that. But I think generally speaking, we agreed to come to this limited experience. Limited in a sense, we're not fully telepathic. We don't know some of our skills if we're wanderers or starseeds or whatever else, if we're from higher density of experience or higher dimensions of physicalness. So I think that's one thing, is to, from my perspective, to have a little humble pie that we are somewhat limited, but doesn't mean we have to be. But that's the way it's been. We've been living in this limited experience, which is obviously going through a huge transformation into a higher state of consciousness on the planet and within all of us. So sometimes just to know that we are human, we're going to be activated sometimes. We've got these old ape biochemical bodies that sometimes get hijacked by our life experiences, and we can just afterwards, when we recalibrate ourselves and ground ourselves, go, okay, and that's something to work on. So I think that's one thing, is to know that we're going to screw up. Love your neighbor even when they screw up. Love your partner when they screw up. Love your friend when they screw up, because we're going to screw up. And we're all here to experience and learn from our mistakes. So I think to have a little more compassion between people, kind of like looking at each other as spiritual beings, having physical experiences, not walking down the street and looking at them as a COVID factory and you've got to walk 15 feet around them. Like, everyone is so scared to be within 6 feet. It blows my mind. We are being suppressed from understanding that we co-create. And so the second part to that, for anyone that's never seen this, go look up the Maharishi effect. Go look up Maharishi University, or just type in the Maharishi effect, of how group meditation, thousands of people meditate. You can change crime rate. You can change so many things in your surroundings because of the collective consciousness that's being manifested that overwhelms the unorganized vibrational consciousness around you. So it's like when people talk about the 100th monkey effect, or that 1% needed of coherent thought to overwhelm the 99% that isn't coherent. And so for me, that's a big passion of my interest, is for us to tap into collective consciousness, for us to together co-create. And I think that's us doing this sort of stuff and having these chats and getting in meditation groups together. It's so much easier to learn how to do prayer, contemplation, and meditation in groups than it is individually, what I found in my experience. So this is a great time for people to kind of put themselves out there and try and start their own little groups and get people together. It's got to be on Zoom or something great. Try and be connected, try and be in person as best you can, because there's something special about having interpersonal connections, and our mirror neurons are firing off and getting satiated, and just that avenue of connecting with other people so we can co-create. I think that's a big part of what we're being withheld from right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're kind of like radio frequency towers, just and we don't realize it. So we're just constantly blasting frequencies all over the place. And when we can focus and really tune into our frequency and dial into the same channel collectively, then we can. And that is what channeling is essentially. It's just getting on that same line of frequency, and then you can open up those telepathic thought waves and do it in that sort of way. And it happens all the time. When you thinking about a friend and then they call you, like it happens. Like you're tapping into them and they heard it and stuff happens. But it's yeah, it's a wild experience to play with, and we're just getting started. We really are just getting started.
Once you start learning mastery over something like that, I think that's when it starts getting really fun, because it's fun to have those one-offs of, like, when you're thinking of someone calls you or they call you, or these kind of fluke psychic, like you think of something and all of a sudden it appears. Like, it seems to be happening more and more because I think everything's vibrating much faster now. But when you're able to do this with intention and on purpose, to me, I just feel like there's a certain level of mastery, but I think that it really starts with a certain level of self-responsibility of having this desire and then cleaning up your frequency and being a clear channel for your higher guidance, and then to be able to connect with the grid with everybody else who might be wanting to tune into the same channel. And that's when you focus that frequency with others, that's when it gets really potent. And I think that's what we're
seeing.
Yeah.
We all live in the same house. So we live in a duplex, and my family is downstairs, your family is upstairs. And the stuff we are co-creating right now, the tie-in synchronicities we're seeing, I've never seen it before.
It's crazy.
It's amazing. And all of us, even the kids are getting it.
Yeah. Well, the kids are really potent because they're already so open and less obstructed, right? So it's really fun.
It's there for us to tap into. Okay, I'll give this for people watching. So I'll give a couple resources. If someone is struggling a little bit with meditating, go to my YouTube channel, and there's a link called Meditation Series, Kyle's 3-part meditation. And it's pretty much rooted in law of one stuff of the three ways to meditate: prayer, contemplation, meditation. Goes through all three.
What's your YouTube channel?
It's just my name, just Kyle Cheveldayoff.
Yeah, I've got the link in the description to Kyle's link tree, and it is in that as well. And
then in there as well, if someone finds that maybe they're listening to some of the wrong voices, if someone feels like maybe, because we're receivers, all these thoughts in our head are not our own thoughts. And that's why we have multiple voices in our head sometimes. So what we can do is vet some of those voices out, and also vet or protect ourselves, I should say, of what we want to bring in to our mind. We can do that as well. So I've got another video on there called the challenging technique. And it's a technique where you can go in your own way, and you can learn how to challenge what information you're bringing through, what voices you're bringing through. And it's not one-off. These aren't one-offs. You have to listen and try it, and listen and try it and apply it. And
what does challenging mean?
Challenging is, good question. Challenging, I actually got the majority of that from studying channel material, working with channelers, learning to channel myself. And through this process of watching how those that have a methodology to their channeling process, some will just go, okay, and they'll drop into whatever they're doing because they've done it for how many decades, and they'll start to bring through what they feel is their preferred channel. This is a technique where you would challenge ahead of time. So you would actually challenge what is going to be coming in. Do you, for example, no, that's a difficult example. So I'll just say, if you were to walk into a room full of people and you wanted some advice, wouldn't it be good to kind of select people that might be on the same wavelength as you? Maybe more positive than more negative. And so considering that we are radio receivers, we are receivers of information, what you can do is challenge the information coming through. So you might resonate with Christ consciousness. You might resonate with Buddha consciousness. You might resonate with love and light. You might resonate with an ascended master. And so you go through a process of saying, in your own way, it has to resonate deep inside. This is why it takes so much time to practice that. It took me a year to really get my challenging technique down through daily meditation, to the point where I can just sit down, and in 30 seconds, I can challenge what information I want to come through me. And then I've selected only this criteria is allowed to interact with me. The rest can stand aside and watch, but it can't interfere. And so you go through a process of actually refining what you want to come through and giving a benchmark. Like, it might be Christ consciousness, might be Buddha consciousness, it might be your dog's consciousness, whatever it is that you really resonate with as being benevolent and loving. And that's the frequency that you want whatever coming in to be on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great explanation.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I think you can really simplify it and just get into where am I pulling from ego? Where am I pulling from this sort of self-centered, service to self-oriented, whether that's within or without that sort of entity, or am I pulling from this service to others, this oneness, this recognition that we are all one, because God's never going to lead you wrong. Like, God's never going to give you anything that's going to lead you astray. So it's only going to be that benevolent sort of nature, whereas ego is always going to give us, it might trick us sometimes, but it's always going to give us that one that's ultimately self-serving in that sort of way. But that's where clarity gets really, really important, because if you don't have if you haven't practiced, if you haven't got a good sense of where these voices are coming from, or how to distinguish between, am I being deceived, or is this coming from my higher self, then it can really lead you astray. It can really, that's where a lot of people I see in the spiritual community get so wrapped up in ego that they're saying, oh, I'm talking with, the Palladians or whoever, and they're leading me on all these sorts of things, and yeah, give me all this money because I've got to tell you this message, and all sorts of other things. But it's always driven from ego. It's never from a place of that service. It's never given freely, because God's never going to charge any money for a message. That's for certain. And so yeah, it is very vital to really get attuned first, and really get your moral compass set straight before you can really utilize that. But yeah, I think those are great tools.
But even on that, Justin, I think is something that could be elaborated on a little bit, because some people don't, understandably so, some people don't understand service to self and service to others. And when you do get it, it's a very powerful term. So like, if someone doesn't really understand that, and they might go into their meditation and go, I call upon only entities and consciousnesses and whatever they feel like they're connecting with. I ask only those that are service to others oriented to connect with me. Well, you have to understand what service to others is in your own sense, right? Because this is about someone's own view of their experience. And so I don't know if that's something you've explained to people in your podcast, the service to self and service to others, but
yeah, I mean, it's a distinguishment between yeah, I mean, it is hard to define in every single moment, but if you can just extrapolate, where is this coming from, and is this but it really, I would sort of challenge that method of sort of controlling which voices come in, and it's more that sense of being, if I am of service, and if I am dedicated to that, then only that service voice will come through, and that's the kind of like starting point. So you create
you're pretty clear.
You create the
Some
environment.
don't be as clear as you.
Right, but that's what we have to start. That's the foundation that we have to start with. Is it has to be that sense of clarity before we can really rely on that as a I mean, we're all speaking to our higher power in our own way, and it's all for the purpose of learning and pursuing our journey, no doubt. But yeah, the distinguishment between the two voices, I mean, that's what the Bible's all about. Like, the Bible is just an allegory about our internal battle between Satan and Jesus, between God and the devil. Like, they're both in here. They're all in here. Like, it's all us waging this internal battle between these two entities that are not actual physically manifest entities. There's God, which is the creator of all, and then there's this program that we're inserted with, which is ego, and that's what we chose to have within us to provide us with this challenge to overcome, so that we could feel this separation fully, and constantly have this thing nagging at us to get us to separate even further. And if we listen to it, it will get us to separate as far as we want to go. We'll go down as far as we really want to go, until we realize that, hey, I'm not going to listen to this thing anymore. I want to go back up. And then you start opening yourself up to the higher power, to God. And God always leads us back. God's always welcoming us back. He's always waiting, but God never forces. God's never going to like force himself on you to hear it. You have to receive it. And so that's why it's so vital to start with that as the foundation. We have to really get our receivers cleaned. And that's why so much of the Bible is all about cleaning the temple, because our body does have to be a temple in order to receive clearly. And yeah, it just kind of goes from there.
Yeah, that's again like talking about how you can't separate the mind, body, the spirit. And I wanted to actually touch on this because I've been learning a lot about self-regulation, mainly around our like parenting, which consequently is always a lesson about self when you're dealing with your kids. It's always about reparenting. They're such great teachers. They're the best teachers. But we don't have self-regulation tools, which fits into the self-mastery. So if we don't even have ways to not only self-regulate, but even just identifying emotions, which most of us don't have as children. We grow up in households where certain emotions were suppressed, or you just don't talk about things altogether, and then you go into different coping mechanisms. Those obviously perpetuate into our life and then our relationships and everything else. And so I think, self-regulation is a really good tool to be using alongside, or even just as a fundamental, like a foundation into doing more of this kind of work with channeling and stuff like that. Because if you can't self-regulate, we're stuck in the root chakra and we're constantly in fight or flight, where that's actually meant to be, a function, not a chronic state that most of us are in all the time, especially with everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can master that, but it takes awareness, and again, it's a practice, just like anything else, of creating that awareness. Because we haven't actually even talked about this. I wanted to pick your brain about this, but I was listening to a woman. She's also a psychologist. I think her name's a holistic psychologist. She was talking about how in psychology they don't even talk about subconscious.
Oh, did we freeze?
I still hear you, but your video did freeze.
Yeah. Well, you still hear us. Anywho. But yeah, she was talking about how they don't talk about they don't talk about psychology or subconscious in psychology when she was going to school. Did they talk about it at all when you went?
Not a heck of a lot, to be honest.
Yeah. And she's like, that's really crazy because most of the time subconscious is running the show. But you can get these tools and use these tools in the conscious mind, and you use them only when you're conscious of it. And so when you deviate into an automatic pattern or a coping mechanism that you've done your whole life, you're likely not able to tap back into that because you just go back into autopilot.
Right, which is, just another example of where they purposefully keep the keys to how to do all of this away from anyone who's learning into it. Just the same in the medical industry, they don't teach nutrition at all. We don't start with the foundational, like the absolutely epitome of the foundation. It has to be built on this rock. It has to be built on this solidness. Otherwise, you're just going to falter. Like it's just going to be useless, essentially.
Yeah, well, the medical industry doesn't talk anything about health or healthy bodies. And like, even I'm very passionate, I'm a doula, I'm very passionate about birth as well. They don't teach OBs what a natural birth looks like. And so these are not fundamentals that are taught right off the hop, because they don't want us to have this. Looking at COVID, how many government bodies do you hear talking about anything that will help your immune system?
Right.
Nothing.
No.
Not a freaking peep.
No, there's nothing around. Try not to activate our sympathetic nervous system, because right now, 60 to 90% of disease is estimated to be caused by stress.
Yeah.
60 to 90%. And what is stress?
Yeah.
Stress is our perception of our reality around us. So if we are perceiving stress around us, we're activating our sympathetic nervous system, the old fight, flight, or freeze, changing our biochemistry, changing our nervous system. And are we seeing anything on the news around how to help us not activate our fear response inside of us? It's the opposite. It's all around be fearful, stay in that constant state of fear, activate that sympathetic nervous system. 60 to 90% of disease is activated by stress. So, hey, they're doing a great job by making us sick. It's very clever. Is it worth us logging out and coming back in, Justin? Looks like it's frozen.
Sure, if you want to.
Okay, just give me a sec here.
Okay. Yeah, and for anyone listening in, we don't have a ton of people watching, so I'm sure we can take some questions at some point too. If anyone's got any relevant questions to what we're talking about, certainly happy to put them on. But yeah, it's a fascinating conversation for sure. And it just comes back to doing the work, the one story. There you go.
All right, we're back.
Welcome back.
I always have technical difficulties. They follow me.
Well, when you have that kind of attitude, of course you are.
I take it as a blessing. I take it as, oh, interesting. There's some negative energy following me around. Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yeah, just little challenges to give you a little bit extra flair, and then Yeah, I mean, that's all life's challenges are anyway. It's just things to overcome so that we can look back and be like, yes, I did
I
that.
want to back up on one thing if we can. For some people that might be confused with service to self and service to others, I hear that a lot. That pops up for me a lot when I'm talking with people. I like explaining it as, because they're very powerful. When someone can understand service to self and service to others and have clarity around that, I generally look at it as one side is benevolent, one side is malevolent. So the service to self side, it's benevolent. You don't want to cause harm onto someone else.
Mhm.
You're looking at what you're doing and going, is this totally self-serving right now? Or am I serving possibly myself, but I'm serving others too? I wouldn't be doing harm onto anyone else. That would be service to others. And then the service to self would be, I, Me, Mine by the Beatles. Like you're on that path where I can justify it myself. It's, or it might even be on the service to others path. It's the power of love that you're seeking. And on the service to self path, it's the love of power. And so you kind of vet it that way, I find, for people. Because I teach people this a lot. Like you can stop in a moment and reflect on your decision and go, is this service to self or service to others? Because sometimes it's hard to tell until you get that discernment around what am I really trying to get from this? And I think if people took that approach a little more and just reflected on, is this service to self or service to others? And just included that more in their daily life, I think they'd be a wiser person as they interact with people.
Yeah, I mean, you said it well with the causing no harm aspect to it, because that's really important, because we can we can still pursue self. We can still pursue the growth and creative exploits and things of that nature as long as they're causing no harm. And that's where it gets really vital, and another aspect that we're taught nothing about, and even with the church, and how much they've distorted the Bible. It's just describing like God's laws and the rule book to how this universe is set up. And natural law is very much, they're very scientific. You can objectively prove these laws exist. And it's through the karmic rebalancing of things when they do and don't occur that way. But if we step outside of this law book, if we start causing harm to others, we incur that karmic repercussions. It's set up in a very meticulous, very balanced sort of way. And when we don't learn it, when we don't know this, when we don't learn about the intricacies of how this universe, how this creation is set up, then we're inevitably just going to be chaotic in ways that we're orienting, always service to self, service to others, back and forth, and never clearly making that decision, never clearly making that choice. So yeah, it can be simplified to that sort of benevolence versus malevolence. Am I aiming to to it's like essentially Satanism is worship of the self above all else. It's saying that I'm Imai, as you said, is that my goals, it doesn't matter what they are, I'm going to pursue them regardless to whatever ends, and it doesn't matter who I harm in the process. It doesn't, they're just in the way. um, that's that ultimate orientation towards that left-hand path, whereas the other is recognition that the self is in the others, and therefore I can pursue things. But if I'm harming others in that pursuit, then it is ultimately the wrong path. And so I have to find a way to serve others in that pursuit, which ultimately serves the whole and ultimately serves myself, because it's all one
And the
thing.
expansion of the whole.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a recognition that I'm aiming to expand the whole instead of just trying to expand my separateness, which separation is the illusion. But it's the illusion that you have to believe wholeheartedly in order to fully
Mhm.
align to that service to self orientation.
And to each their own. I mean, if somebody wants to be on, it doesn't mean if you're on the service to self path, you're going down the path of Satan. No, it might, maybe you're just confused in your life and you're playing a little more on, you're playing on both sides. You're not really polarizing one of the two ways, and that's okay. You're probably going to have more experiences like this to really figure out which way you want to polarize. But I think for those that do want to go through the ascension process, that do want to play with those higher density vibrations, then that personal responsibility comes into play to really look at, are you playing in a way that's service to others? Are you playing in the playground service to others or service to self? And sorry, I cut you off. You were going to say
No, I was
something.
gonna say, because I haven't read the Law of One yet. And so as somebody who hasn't, is not familiar with it, does this imply, or does this mean that in order to be service to others, you would put others before yourself? I'm like, what came up for me is, I'm a mom of 3, and if I put only my kids in front of me, my cup would be empty and I wouldn't be able to show up as myself, because I like how.
You don't have to be a martyr.
Okay.
You don't have to be a martyr. You just have to be.
Because the harm part, I think there's more to it that puts something in for me. So it's not that you don't sacrifice yourself for others.
No, you include yourself in the equation, no doubt. And it's part of that recognition that I can't serve others unless I serve myself. So you do have to serve yourself. And that's why that term can be confusing to use.
Right.
It can be.
Right.
Because you do have to include yourself primarily in that equation. I have to make sure that I am well enough to serve others. Otherwise, I am not able to serve others in a full capacity.
An example of that, sorry?
Well, just to add on to that, but that serving of myself to prepare myself to serve others cannot include harming anyone.
Right, there you go.
That has to be very clear, like from the beginning. If I'm harming another, then I'm not serving anyone, other than myself.
Well put.
Yeah. When I'm working with first responders, I'll use a first responder analogy. So when I was in the fire service, you always take care of yourself first, because you don't want to be a casualty for the people you're working with. Right. So you have to be accountable for yourself and take care of yourself, because you're going to be a liability if you're not. And you also want to be part of the team. So there has to be an aspect of self-care so that you continue to be part of that team. Right. And then you're also serving still. So it's a dance. Yeah. It's a dance sometimes.
Because you can't be of service to others unless you're serving yourself.
Yeah.
Like caring for yourself.
Right.
Yeah, but
if you're serving yourself at the cost of someone else's
harm.
Yeah, if you're doing harm onto someone else,
right.
It gets a little gray there too, because it depends on how aware someone is.
Right.
So if someone is naive and they don't know they're doing harm to someone else, they really don't know, they likely wouldn't be causing that same karma, because it would be a level of ignorance to it. Right. But if, I'm not saying that's always the case, but and it depends on the level of harm. Like if it's just, I'm gonna have 3/4 of that snack and give the other person a quarter. I mean, that is service to self, but I mean, it's not doing a lot of harm onto someone else. So but then there's cases where it is a big deal. So I think it depends on the situation and the awareness that someone has too in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, the intent is certainly the key factor in it all.
Intent is the key. Yeah.
Intent is absolutely key. That's paramount, and there's no hiding that, and from a karmic perspective, there's no hiding what the intent was. And so if our intent is to do that from that perspective, then we are incurring that. If our intent is not to, and we do accidentally cause harm, and it's not even really harm at that point, it's more just damage. It's not my intent was not to harm, yet by my action there was some damage caused, but that I wouldn't classify that in the same sort of karmic, that's got to be some other thing that needed to come up for some other reason.
Because this fits right in with like truth speaking, right? Like because if your intent is not to be harmful, you're just speaking truth because this is authentically what's coming out of you. It's a very subjective thing, because that could trigger the shit out of somebody and they'd be really offended and say, you're a giant asshole. I can't believe you'd be so hurtful, even though your intention was not that. And so that's like the greatest example. And it's so fitting truth telling, because it's extremely, and we talk about this all the time, we're very disruptive people by nature, just because
we're both strong catalysts.
Just say what it is, not to be hurtful, or not as a license to be an asshole. Because I've had that path as well for a while. Once you open it was like a bottleneck of like all this stuff that I've been suppressing. It popped open and I fire hosed everyone, and I'm like, yes, I can speak what I need to, but ego was in there, so I had to clean that up. Yeah. But and it really does. The intent part is really crucial. I think that's
intent. Intent is one of the key things always taught in meditation. Place an intention before you meditate. Place an intention before you pray. place an intention before you contemplate. It's intention.
Yeah, and I think that example of telling the truth is such a perfect one to hone into, because I mean, wow, have we all experienced that? And we felt like, at times we can feel really bad because we've offended someone or made them sad or angry or fearful or however, just by presenting the truth. But in reality, that's the greatest form of love, because you're sacrificing your desire to be light, which is the falsity. That's that mask that we wear, and you're putting yourself out there to provide someone with that catalyst, to give them an opportunity to either see it in that moment or not, and that's their choice. But they would have never been presented with that in that specific instance with that opportunity to see the truth, and so therefore you would have been, by hiding it, by having that intent to not say it, you're actually causing more harm because you're hiding the truth from them. It's not going to be a severe action, but it certainly is not the right action in that moment. The right action is full authenticity, full truth, full transparency in all moments, to where we can all just balance out and get past this whole political correctness and all this garbage where people are
It's
trying
victim consciousness again.
it
That's what
is,
it
it
is. You
is.
see others a victim and they can't handle the truth, or really what it comes down to is we don't want to hurt the person, and we don't want to feel what we would feel in them being upset by it.
Right.
And that's the victim consciousness right there, is we see them as a victim and we also don't feel like we're not either.
It's a brilliant mind control technique. It's so brilliant in how they push it, and it works so well. But that's a big one that we have to get past, is this desire to be nice. Well, I was having a conversation about this today, about being nice. I don't want to be nice. I want to be kind. And
Yep.
being kind means that I'm going to tell you like it is. And if you need to hear that, if I need to be your mirror and show you clearly what you're saying or what you're doing or how you're coming across, I'm going to be kind to you and do that. I'm not going to come at you with any sort of vitriol or hatred in how I present it, but I am going to present it. I'm not going to be nice in that moment. I'm not going to be nice ever and just let things fade away in that sort of sense. But we have to get really clear how that, I mean, that's just an example of that split choice. Every choice, every action, every thought, everything can be boiled down to that binary decision point. I mean, that is discussed in the law of one, how that is the first decision point is, am I serving others? Am I serving myself? Service to self, service to others. It's a split path, right brain, left brain. It's the same sort of same sort of thing. But when we can fear versus love, it's the same sort of thing, because even that niceness or wanting to be complacent and not offend someone, you're ultimately going to that fear path. Like that's a fear-based action. That is fear-based to say, I'm not going to do that now because I'm afraid of how it will come across. I'm afraid of how they will react to it and all of that sort of things. But you can really boil down everything to that fear versus love. It's that simple. And we have to
Okay,
go
let me
back
throw
to it.
this out. This might be an interesting topic to be truthful about. How people are currently presenting themselves and acting around the whole COVID catalyst. So I've heard some very wise people that I highly, highly respect, that are deep scholars of the law of one, that believe that the masks are the right thing to do, and that what people should be doing is respecting that is being in service to others, because we are meeting them where they're at, and we are wearing a mask to assist them because it'll help them feel better. And whether they believe in the fear around COVID, I'm a little unsure about, but they truly believe they're being more in service to others by wearing masks. So I'd like to unpack that with you guys.
Well, that's like touching upon, it's very much so the difference between niceness and kindness, but the word compassion and how that's completely distorted, because you're literally dropping in frequency to meet someone, to be compassionate and literally experience that frequency with them, instead of holding your frequency and holding the mirror, or just if they need, hold space, sure. But that's joining them.
Yeah.
I feel like that's totally victim consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
because we're not seeing them as gods. We're not seeing them as, the spiritual creators that they are.
Oh, we're also creating a huge gap of separation. So if we promote that masks are the right thing to do because we're not upsetting people and we're not making people scared because we're not wearing a mask, I feel like you have to back up a little further to the source, and the source is COVID. Not downstream. Oh, I want to meet them where they're at right now. It's no. You've tripped yourself up, and you're caught up in the spider web of victim consciousness now. You need to have better discernment, back up to look at what is the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that we are all one, and we are one in consciousness, and we can either separate ourselves and walk 15 feet around each other and be scared all day long that we're going to catch this COVID thing that has, it's the typical flu season. And people are so wound up in this that we've been conditioned. We've been subconsciously conditioned to not even look at the bigger picture of what we really need to look at. And we're sitting in this state of, oh no, masks are normal now. Just do it because you don't want to piss people off. And it's interesting.
It's fascinating. And, again,
So clever.
Yeah, it's very clever. And again, playing on God's sense of humor, and that this whole example is going to be the thing that helps activate us to take off our metaphysical mask as well. But I always like drawing on the example when people use that sort of logic. It's just like, so say there was some insane person that came around, and if you didn't wear a pink sock on your right ear, they would throw a fit. They would absolutely just go crazy. They would throw a fit. They would try and break things. They would scream at the top of their lungs. And as soon as you put that right sock on, they stop doing that. Would you wear that?
Children right now?
Yeah.
Would you wear that pink sock on your right ear just to appease them? Just to appease some lunatic who says that's the only thing that's going to make me feel better? Or would you challenge them? Or would you say, no, I'm not going to do that. You can live in your insane world and do your insane thing all you want. And it's, it probably doesn't really necessarily help the conversation whenever it goes, but it does give pause to present that idea, and usually just brush up, oh, you just don't care. But it's just like we get caught in this wheel, exactly like you said, Kyle, because we're not going back to the source. We're not using the truth. The truth has to be foundational. The truth, like when we know better, we have to do better, and we have to go all the way to the truth of every situation. And if we're
back to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
If we're building our reality based on lies in any degree, which is why the whole organized society only pushes lies. They want us to build everything based off lies,
Mm-hmm.
This one included. But when we don't have any firm footing to hold on to, which is the truth, then we're always doomed to be lost and steered and pulled in whatever direction. And that's just how it is. So we have to get back to that.
Sorry, we're in a time of full disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
And so and this is funny because it ties into even detoxification. You can't, we walk around, and if we're like, radiating the frequency of truth just by not wearing a mask, like I don't see it as a thing of I'm pushing against, I'm creating resistance, I'm going to do this in protest, I'm not going to wear a mask in protest to you people wearing a mask. It's more so this is for me in my alignment, and this is what I'm doing, like over here, regardless if it's masks or whatever it is. And if that's disruptive to you, if that triggers you, then that's for you. And all it's telling you is deep-rooted fear. And it's just a generic frequency, but it's coming out. And now I get to be the example and the thing that you point at if you're going to stay in victim consciousness. Or you can take a look at this and say, holy shit, I have a lot of fear running, which probably isn't going to happen. But it's opportunities like that are happening all around us all the time. When we're triggered, we can see it as an opportunity of what's running. What do I need to address in frequency? And so when I'm talking about relating to detox, you're leaning in. It's going to be fucking uncomfortable during some of these periods of time when you're doing fasting or you're going through a healing crisis, and you're literally digging up the shit that it's been there the whole time. That's the thing, is that these frequencies of fear are within us the whole time. It's just that now we've had a desire somewhere, our soul or us as beings have had a desire somewhere for it to be shown to us so that we could have a choice in the universe of free will. So we can have a choice to expand, to make a different choice, to pick a different timeline. And we get to choose if we're going to push against that and blame and point at and stay in victim consciousness, or we can eat our humble pie and address the emotions that are going on. And so I think that's funny because it's, again, just ties in everything. Again, the mind, body, spirit, you can't separate these things. It's all the same. And so it's like systems, the same out there with everything going on, political or not. This is just more obstructed shit that needs to be brought up if we're going to the frequency that we know on a deep level that we're capable and desire to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow, well said. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one comment on the space and stepping into our space as sovereigns, as children of God, and owning that and saying, I'm not going to force you to do anything. You can live how you like. Do like stay in your house, be fearful, wear your mask in the shower, like whatever you want to do, you know, have at it. But I'm going to own my space, and that's it. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. We're not infringing. We're not allowing any of that to be overtaken. And so we have to get really clear on that aspect, because too many people are just capitulating and saying, "Oh, well, I'm I don't really want to wear this mask, but I'm going to do it just because I don't want, whatever, and that's where we start to get split and get away from our true essence and true self, and that recognition, and pushed into that victim consciousness, because we're being told that we're not even worthy enough to make decisions about our own body. We're not even worthy enough to take ownership of our space at all, and that's wrong. That's totally wrong.
Okay, let me throw out another one.
Yeah.
So I was listening to a podcast last night, actually, of the same group I was just talking about. And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. That's why I'm being really covert how I'm doing this, because it's not my point at all. I'm trying to look at differences of opinion and allow people to choose what they want. But they brought up how conspiracy theorists, they were generalizing, which is unfortunate. I was surprised. But conspiracy theorists are often getting confirmation bias. And so they're going down rabbit holes until they find something that, whoa, and then they go down other rabbit holes until they get confirmation bias of that, or they hear it somewhere else and they believe that those correlations are truth. And so they talked about how much conspiracy theorists are actually getting just simple confirmation bias. And I thought that is such an ignorant thing to say, because that's what they're doing. Like we are living the way we were 2 years ago, because we know what the stats are. We know what COVID is appearing. We listen to both sides of the science. And other people are stuck in this fear-based victim consciousness. They're the ones that have changed. They're the ones that got confirmation bias. They're the ones that have changed things and are living in victim consciousness. And they also talked about how a lot of the conspiracy theorists, you could lump me in there, I guess, as a conspiracy theorist, and definitely you could. And they were talking about how many of those that are conspiracy theorists are also, they're being activated by fear consciousness. And I thought that's interesting, because what we're actually trying to do is be sovereign human beings and stand in our light, just like we were 2 years ago. I'm not doing anything different than I was 2 years ago, except certain situations when I got to put a mask on, I go, fine, I have to go in there, I'll do it. But it's such an interesting paradox that is happening. And I try and look at that from a lens of, we're just all being tested. I truly believe that these people are completely on the path of love and light, to the point where they're being martyrs. I believe they're entering martyrdom, but I don't believe this is the time for martyrs. That's old. That we needed martyrs before. Now what we need are people that will stand in the light and not die. They'll keep fighting and keep fighting. This isn't a war where there's guns blazing. This is a psychological war. So I'm curious what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the aspect about martyrdom, it's interesting, because martyrdom is really ego. It might seem like it's very loving, and it's very you're doing it from a self-sacrifice sort of perspective, but I see martyrdom as almost ego, in the sense that it's fear-based, because it's saying that I'm not worthy enough to even protect myself, and so therefore I'm just gonna cast myself into this in order to gain approval from another, because I fear that rejection so much. I fear not fitting in. I fear that not, at least that's where I see martyrdom and where it has played in my life is realizing that anytime I do step into martyrdom fully, it's because I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of not being accepted if I don't sacrifice myself to some extent or another. So I think it's, going back to that true bifurcation between all decisions, that right and left hand path, that fear versus love is, you can really see it play out in that sort of avenue, and you can see it play out in sorry, what did you say? What was the example that you brought up initially?
Um, the
I
fear
lost.
consciousness part, where conspiracy theorists are acting out of fear.
Oh, right,
That
right.
part.
Yeah, yeah. So as far as that avenue goes, I mean, that's the tricky way that ego, that fear-based consciousness, it's always projecting. I mean, we see when we go fully down that path and we enter, I mean, we see it in narcissism and pathological liars and things of that nature, that sort of negative orientation. It's always projecting outwards. It's always so fearful of this idea that I'm going to project this idea onto another, because I can't bear to look at it. I can't bear to even comprehend that this could be possibly something that I'm going through. So the only way that I can do is on a higher level, I know that this is what I'm going through. I've integrated that. But in order to ignore it, I'm just going to spit it right back out and blame everything else as the problem for that, and sort of project in that sort of way. So yeah, it's fascinating to see people go that route, but it is very paradoxical, and it's comical in a lot of ways, because
Yeah, because most people that are, if you want to say conspiracy theorists, sure, there are some people that are way out there. They've gone down some deep rabbit holes. They're jumping to conclusions. But I find the majority of people, like us three as an example, we do a shitload of research on the side to try and understand these things. We're not reading CBC and listening to CNN. We're listening to both sides. We're understanding things. We're asking questions. We're reading things. We're disseminating information. I find it's the people that are kind of deep into conspiracy theories right now are seeing that things don't add up. And so what they're doing is they're trying to find the truth. They're truth seekers. And if you want to say that truth seekers are conspiracy theorists, that's like putting duct tape on someone's mouth and saying, just zip it, don't talk about these things, just comply. Victim consciousness.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a weaponized term. I like that. I like the term conspiracy realist instead of theorist, because there is a conspiracy, no doubt.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of thing. Like, if people who steal all the time, or who are so prone to just, who are kleptomaniacs and steal all the time, they are so fearful of other people stealing their stuff all the time. They think that everyone is inclined to this way of being, that everyone's going to be stealing their stuff. And it's that same sort of way when you get so stuck in that egotistical path, that service to self path, where you're willing to, like, disregard the needs of others, and you get so warped into thinking that you fool yourself into thinking that others are that same sort of way. So this could be another way of that sort of playing out, to where they're blaming everyone else for those issues that they're internally going through, and that you're the
Yeah.
one who's responding to fear, and you're the one who's afraid of everything, and that kind of stuff.
Well, and that goes into alignment with how what a lot of people are actually living is a life of projection. We are projecting our own fears. We're projecting our own view. We all have a view, right? There's a beautiful, benevolent world out there that if humans just left the planet, Mother Earth, Gaia would be doing just fine. Our projection into the world around us is our own distortions a lot of the time. And so what we're doing is we're seeing mirrors of our own projections. So for the thief, they're going to think that other people are thieves. And I know for myself, growing up an atheist, growing up racist, I often joke around, I grew up a racist atheist, and I did. I'm not proud of it, but I learned a lot, and then I found I deepened my spirituality. I resonated with a bigger picture of consciousness. And so over the years, I've had to learn how to be vulnerable, how to open myself up and be vulnerable and have these conversations. And it's been, testing the waters because I have to project that out and see how the mirrors are turned on me. And then over the years, I've realized, wow, when I do that, what gets projected back to me is that people actually see something in me that they want to do. And so they see a different mirror. And so it's interesting how we can play with those different mirrors when we start to consciously become aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what you said earlier, Avalon, about triggers and how we can lean into them or we can view them as something that's detrimental, because I almost have got, like, I've gotten to the point now where anytime I get triggered by something or anytime I feel some sort of detox challenge or whatever come up, I'm like, all right, let's do this. This is another one. This is another challenge for me to get over, because I know when I get on the other side of it, I know that I'm unlocking something. I know that there's something powerful on the other side of it. So this is like, yes, this is like, it's almost being thankful for it. It sucks in the moment, but it's almost with that gratitude and just flipping that conversation away from, oh, this is all happening to me and this sucks and I can't do anything about it and blah blah blah. But instead, it's just these are my activators. These are gifts.
It almost sounds like little hero journeys.
Yeah.
Each time we do these little things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the one tail. Yeah, they were just
So
on the
looping
hero's
this
journey.
back to like the topic of the discussion, how, like, where do you guys feel we are in the ascension? Like, how do you think we're doing in the ascension with all this being said? Do you think that we're on pause? Do you think it's slowing down? Do you think that it's right on par?
Well, if I think of the law of one material, if I think of in the 80s what Ross said, and then more recently what Kuo has said, it's a difficult birth. Gaia's having a difficult birth into 4D consciousness. We're technically past the timeline, 2012, and so many we're looking at the Mayan calendar and all of that. Kind of makes sense. We're a little late. It's kind of a difficult process. Now, I could go on more, but I want to hear what you have to say, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as I think we're exactly in the right place, because there's nothing wrong in this experience as far as what we need to go through. And so we needed to go through all of this in order to experience what this exactly was like in this particular moment. We wouldn't have gotten it otherwise. Like, we wouldn't have experienced this particular feeling and this particular challenge and this particular aspect to it if we didn't have this set of circumstances play out and give us this opportunity to look at them and grow from and choose to do with what we will. And many will potentially stagnate, but stagnate's about the worst you can do. You can either grow or you can stagnate, and stagnating is not necessarily a horrible thing because we're not losing anything in the experience, but the idea is to grow. And so I see this as kind of like God's pendulum. It's always swinging back and forth and swinging back between these two orientations in this dualistic experience between the service to others and service to self path, where these two orientations are given an opportunity to sort of lead in that sort of way and be the dominant force within an era. So we're just now leaving an era that was fully dominated by that service to self orientation. And we chose to have that experience, and we will probably choose to have it again at some point. And maybe I won't do that, because if you want to, I think you can eventually graduate away from the need for the duality. But right now, where we are now, it is that constant pendulum, and it's just going back and forth, back and forth. And so we're about to swing into this next era, which is all about that service to other orientation, to where that's going to be the dominating force. And it's a complete different momentum shift. And it's going to be beautiful to witness it emerge. It might take a minute, and it's our choice to kind of how long it takes for it to merge. And that's all about how quickly we want to adopt this way of being and how quickly we each individually want to ascend. Because I don't see this as like a end all be all collective, it has to be. I mean, it is like we're tied together. And so the faster we can all do it, the faster we all get there. But it is also an individual responsibility kind of task of like, I'm going to go through all of my 7 chakras. Where am I receiving blocks? What aspect is it? Is it my body? Is it my mind? Is it my soul? Like, what aspect of me is holding me back from that next level? Where do I need to ascend, and where can I lean into the teachings that are very prevalent all throughout our history? There's one story that's told over and over again. Like, this is the story that we're supposed to find and follow and go. So it just depends on how quickly we want to all decide to do that. And so I see some of us will create like little pockets. It'll be pockets where we'll be creating these communities, and we'll be being that representation of like, hey, this is what it can be like. This is what the whole earth can be like. And we can all get there quickly, or there can be pockets that stay and stagnate, and there can be pockets that perish and whatever else. But it's all necessary. So I don't think there's anything wrong. Like, I don't think we're slowed down or any from any sort of perspective, because it all needed to happen. It all had to happen this way.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we came here to ascend right the bleep out of here. I think we came for the journey, for like the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of our souls have different assignments that we took, that we agreed to forget in order for us to get here. So yeah, I think we're right on par because we're here. That's as simple as I think it is. I don't think it's slowing by any means. I feel like everything's just getting faster and more intense because everything's being brought to the surface again, like a good detox.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I see God's clock as being so pivotal to this, because as soon as we start to stagnate in a particular era, then God's like, okay, we're going to shift the clock a little bit, and that just picks up all the energy. It's like heating up the chemistry set. All the activations start to happen, and okay, either shit or get off the pot. Like, it's time to make some things happen. We don't know exactly how it's going to transition and what it's going to look like, but we're not just going to sit here. That's for sure. We're not just going to sit here and be stable. Yeah. Action is required, and a choice is required. And I truly see that, given my theory of this next era being more dominated by that service to others orientation, the planet is going to become more and more uncomfortable for the service to self-oriented beings. So these nefarious beings that are out there corrupting and trying to harvest our children and all of that kind of stuff, like, they're going to find it very hard to live on this earth, and because we're going to purposefully wipe them out as best as we can, because we have to take that firm action and say, I recognize that experience and what it provided, which was to have my shadow self take the reins and steer us into this really dark hole for a while. And they did that, and we got that experience. But if I want to step out of that and live this golden era where children can walk the streets with no fear whatsoever, then we have to be extremely firm in saying that I will never, ever, ever, ever allow that to happen again, which means I have to be very active in calling out anytime that sickness starts to emerge, which means that this earth will become extremely uncomfortable and extremely inhospitable for anyone orienting towards that orientation, just like the opposite was happening this time, where those who were of the most extreme orientation, service to others, had a very, very hard time. Then when they were wiped out left and right, you look at Martin Luther King, you look at Gandhi, you look at Jesus, all of these characters, anytime they pop up, it's all automatically, we got to get rid of them. We can't have anybody like that really, really popping forward. We need everyone else to be morally gray, which are the best kind of slaves, but we don't want anyone who's fully activated on that service to others path. And so that's that transition. That's what we're going through right now, is that flip all the way to the other side. And who knows how long it will take for us to get there. It could be months, could be years, could be lifetimes. Like, I don't know, but that's where we're going.
Okay. Here's my take on it. I believe that Earth is 4D positive already. And vibrationally, I believe it is a 4D positive vibration still holding 3D life. Okay. And where I believe we're going to the end of the transition, end of the harvest, end of the ascension process. There's been tons of wanderers and star seeds and indigo children and different souls that have come from different places to help raise the vibration here, to get ready for this transition into heaven on earth, transition into benevolent, service to others oriented consciousness. I believe that we're at the end of that, and that if it happens in our lifetime, I don't know. I think that would be really cool. But I believe as each one of us dies off, and our next incarnation, if coming back here, will have to be on positive orientation. So to stay here and hold this vibration, you'd have to be on the service to others path. So this is like, I kind of consider this as, I'm a hockey guy, not that I'm watching it much anymore, but used to be. So I consider this is Game 7, Stanley Cup final, overtime, and we're on the ice. It's like the end of days, but not end of days where there's, I don't resonate with there being a big solar flash. I mean, who knows? I don't resonate with there being some sort of Armageddon. I don't know. I don't believe so. I believe what's happening right now is it's the last cycle of those who can graduate. And some will graduate to the negative, many or some will graduate to the positive, and many will be confused and may not graduate and may have to have more experiences at this density of existence, which would be somewhere else. So I resonate a lot with the law of one material, which talks, that basically says that Gaia is 4D positive. That's why it's a difficult birthing process, because she's 4D positive. There's still some powerful negative here, but that's all being sorted out. I don't feel like there's any rush. I think this is the most exciting planet in the galaxy, maybe the universe. I don't know. I think there's been a lot of manipulation and tweaking here over the eons, that it's kind of like all these galactic neighbors are just watching going, how's Earth going? Oh, it's been such a shit show there for so long. It's been the Australia of the Milky Way, where we're sending all these, go to Earth. It's a young planet. Go there, and all of a sudden we've got this mix of species that haven't been able to get along in some ways, and a lot of influence from the Orion system, the Dracos, whatever you want to call them, these malevolent sources of energy. And I feel like they're grasping at these last little bits they're trying to get, and they're trying all these different things to keep us from harmonizing together and co-creating, which I think we could do like that if we all focused our thoughts with intention. I think we could flip this over like that. But at the same time, it's exciting. We're here enjoying it. We're seeing this great mix of polarities, this great shift in consciousness, seeing people waking up in all these different ways, seeing people being very much asleep in some ways. It's a beautiful experience. So I'm in no rush to get through it. I'm having a blast right now. But I know there are a lot of people out there that are just going, I've had enough. I want to check out. I can only imagine the suicide rates that are going to happen from COVID this year, and already are happening, right? A lot of people checking out, and that could just be a natural part of this cycle for some people to end this incarnation prematurely, unfortunately, some of them. But I think what an exciting time to be here.
Truly. Yeah. Yeah. Can I throw some contrary perspectives at you?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is one aspect where I kind of differ from the law of one teachings, because I think there's a lot of truthful aspects to them, but and we've discussed this before, but just the way that this earth is set up, there is no out there. There's no outer space. This is all there is. And it's just continual bands of earthly plane. We're on a level stationary plane. We're not on some wet wobbling ball floating in space. That's another part of the deception, the lie that they have to push onto us, because everything has to be a lie. We cannot have any truth whatsoever at all, because if we have any truth, it starts to break away their whole system. So they have to start with that foundational of a lie. And so where the law of one, I think where I differ with it is that these beings are from somewhere out there. I think these are just bands of consciousness that we can tap into that are certainly affecting it, but they're created bands of consciousness that we can tap into, that we are creating as the only beings, as the pinnacle of God's creation on this earthly plane. And so when you have when you have these aspects of like leaving places and the transitions that the law of one talks about, I don't see that happening on like like you're going somewhere else. I really see it as it's all going to happen here. And when we enter into this next era where it is dominated by the service to others orientation, all of these service to self entities, they will have to go into hiding, and that will be the place that they go to. It's not they'll either perish and recycle and get to choose to try and struggle living within this way of being, or they'll, I mean, you could argue that they might even go past the ice wall, because Antarctica is just an ice wall around this earth, and it's just continual bands of plane. It is unending. It is the magnetic representation of consciousness being displayed on a flat physical plane, and it's continuous. It is just a circle within circle within circle within circle, and we have no idea what's past there, because we're playing in this central plane, which is where life truly is. But it does keep going out after that point. So I could see them trying to escape that and going and visiting those outer lands. And there's plenty of maps you can find of these, and plenty of, that's why they don't let anyone go to Antarctica. They really don't want you going there, because don't want anyone finding this sort of aspect out.
It's a Truman Show.
Yeah, it is. It's totally the Truman Show. And the more that, I mean, even the name True Man, I mean, they're throwing it in your face with that
Exactly.
movie.
Yeah.
They're throwing it in your face to say like, hey, everything's an illusion, and this is a reality. The Matrix is just a documentary. Like, it's the same sort of thing. Like, the more ways that they can obfuscate the truth away from us, because this whole earth was designed for us to learn this process and to ascend at whatever rate we want to, and go at it however we want to. But it's to find this one story and truly step into it. So I don't see there as being like these as rigid, definitive like levels. I think the sort of degrees within the law of one are just referencing our chakra system and the 7 chakras that we have to ascend upwards and through. So they're just allegories. They're allegories to kind of like play with, and but there's nothing out there. There's nothing else. It's all here, and we can go into the infinite realm, which is within here. So we become the galactic cruiser that can navigate space, and that's all Star Trek was talking about. The Enterprise was entering within and then traveling wherever.
I love that we see this differently. I love that. And I love that we can have these talks and see it a bit different.
And that's not even touching on time, because we just made up time.
Yeah.
So that our human brains can understand, because everything's happening in a blip anyway.
Yeah.
Right. It's all God's eternal moment.
See, I look at that as,
it's all now.
To clarify the law of one side. And of course, I mean, the law of one it's deep and profound. And I'm not going to pretend to be someone from LL Research that's been studying this for 20 years. I can hold my own talking with the law of one. I've read it a lot. But the way I understand is there's our true reality is an energetic being, is pure consciousness. And our individual spark of that one great consciousness that created the universe in the first place. And so we have chosen to be this spark of consciousness that can be in full energetic form, our full self, whatever that looks like, our full expansive God consciousness that we can be. But the universe was created for an experience. And so then those individual portions of consciousness would go experience those different densities of existence. They would go experience first density, earth, wind, fire, water. Second density, plants and animals. Third density, humanoid form. Fourth density, still humanoid form, but love and understanding, telepathy, all these different things. And we would enter these physical experiences and then leave and be our full expansive. That's where I agree with you, is that everything's inside. It's all in here. But I believe it's all in here when we're outside of our physical incarnation. When we have our physical incarnation, then we're playing within the densities of light experience that universe and that archetypical structure was designed to allow us to play, to have those experiences of what that universe offers.
But what if all that's here? And what if we're the fallen man and we're just supposed to, here in that here and back again, there and back again, just to fall all the way down. And like you said, experience all of those forms, but then rise all the way back up. And then it's just a cycle. And then we get to that pinnacle and we'll do something, we'll make the decision. It could appear cataclysmic on a physical perspective, or it could just be a decision point of like, hey, I'm tired of this harmonious unity. I want to go back and start over again. And then we just cycle back and we go back to the beginning. And then we go back up again. And each time we do, we add more challenges to that experience. So we're always just going upwards, and it's always ascending upwards. But the goal is to find the story each time, especially with this veil, where we agreed to forget everything. We wanted that insane difficulty so that we would forget this, and then we would remember it again. But there's nothing there's, and that's where the whole like alien thing, and that there's Dracos and whatever else, like that's playing into the victim consciousness. That's like, we're powerless. We can't, there are these powerful beings out there that are going to come get us, and they're going to eat us or whatever else, or we have to wait for some savior or some Palladian, or we have to wait for Jesus Christ to come save us or whatever else, instead of recognizing that we are that power.
I don't look at it that way. I would look at that as balance. So if there's positive in the universe, there's negative in the universe. And it's not that the negative is going to win. It's just that there has to be balance. The battery, there has to be positive and negative, and in the middle you have polarity and charge. And so the universe, the physical experience of that universe would have positive and negative. And then you go through those different cycles. Third density of experience is all about free will, free choice to choose. Are you going to go down the path of service to others, or do you want to go down the path of service to self? And then you experience that for densities 4, 5, and 6. And then 6, you come back together to go to density 7. And then 7, when you get to density 8, that's through a black hole back. You've done that experience of the universe, and you can go have another experience in another universe in physical form, or stay in energetic form. It's interesting, right?
Yeah,
we see it a little different, but I think
I just think all of that's here. Like, there's nothing more powerful than us. There's nothing out there to get us except for our own imagination. And so when we pour our intent into this idea that there's some being out there that's more powerful than me, that can subject me to this kind of behavior, then we make it that much more real. But it's fear-based, and it's not reality. And when we step into our ownership of who we are, and that we are children of God, and that this whole creation is specifically designed to protect us with God's firmament as described, and it does so in a way to create this perfect space of ascension, of knowing thyself, so that there is no external interference. It's all about the inward journey, and there's nothing else that it can affect that. And so we get as long as we want to do it. We get as long as we want to stay in whatever form, and then we just keep ascending upwards. The more we figure out the story, the more we play and complete the parts, then we just keep going upwards until, again, like I said, we get to that point where we're like, okay, we've gotten past the need for duality. We've gotten past the need, we're cohesive. We've come back together. It's a big party. We do that for millennia, millions of years, time's irrelevant. So however long we want to, and then we're like, okay, this is boring. Let's go back again. Let's go back to the challenge again. Let's fall all the way down. Let's forget. Let's make it even harder this time. Let's make it that much harder. Like, what can we introduce this time to make it even harder? And we just keep doing that, all for the desire of the Creator to know thyself. And that's all we're here to do, is just to know thyself.
And I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that. I just look at it through a different lens. Where did you sit with that?
I don't know. Whenever I contemplate any of that, I just my brain just kind of goes, because I think I'm looking at it from a conscious awareness. And I haven't actually. I think meditating on it would be a very powerful exercise, actually. Yeah. But I will speak to the fear aspects. I remember in one of my really, really effing hard ayahuasca ceremonies that I did in Peru. Oh man, I thrashed so hard in that ceremony. I was fighting just like tooth and nail. My ego does not want to set aside, and ayahuasca was just, she's like relentless. And I remember at the end, I finally let go. And it was the fear that I was so terrified of. I was clutching, like I was just clenching onto it so tightly. And it was just me, like at the end of the day, it was literally me holding my own, like I was just thrashing against myself. And that was the freaking cosmic joke, because that's how the universe works. Everything's like a hilarious joke. And then I realized that it was just me, and all I had to do was let go. But I had such a hard time remembering on how to let go. And I finally just stopped hanging on. And when I did this, all of my struggle in this moment, it was so intense. I felt like I was turning inside out. I just let go, and it was like literally the Wizard of Oz. Like the curtain just fell, the fear was gone, and it was all. And then it was just so fucking vivid of how I just created the whole thing. And once I actually let go of it, it was just gone. It was smoke. And I burst out laughing. I was peeing my pants. I would burst out laughing. I'm like, what a ridiculous ride! So ridiculous. And that's what I feel is like the human experience. And I kept getting the message last year specifically, because like I know for a lot of people, but for myself especially, it was dark. It was really challenging. Not that last year, I guess it was the year before. It was just really hard. And the sentence I kept getting was, "It will never be this dense." And it was because that was like the thick of it, because of the awareness that I was gaining and the momentum that was coming in, is just that it'll never be this dense. It's becoming less and less dense. And I really got that. And even as it falls away again, like detoxification, it's still uncomfortable as the density, as we let go of the density. But that's, I don't know, that's the only way that I can conceptualize kind of like, not even the out there-ness, but just, the universe that we is outside.
It's micro to macro, like
it is us, yeah.
As within, so without, as above, so below, as with the soul, so with the universe. Like it's the same. It's
totally, yeah.
And
that's a foundational piece. I really believe that too.
Yeah, and it is comical. It is hilarious that we created this whole thing to struggle against, just so we'd have something to bounce off of and to expand off of. Because if we didn't have this like antagonist that we create within, then we wouldn't have nearly as much to learn from and play with.
That's what I think we're here doing. Play. I think this is just for play.
Yeah,
this is
truly.
Action and play.
Oh yeah.
The sense of humor is just like the testament to that. It really is a sense of humor that the universe has, or that I think we forget. And especially doing self-work and stuff, we get so serious, myself especially, get so serious into it. And then you come across some message or some ridiculous saying, and then you remember, you're like, oh God, I'm taking this way too seriously.
Look how many wise teachers of the past had a good sense of humor.
Yeah,
they're not naive teachers. That they didn't get to that point because they just laughed at everything. It's because they did enough inner work to realize that this is a comical. This is a fun journey, as fun as you want it to be, or you can struggle and thrash as much as you want.
Yeah, sometimes you have to do both.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to, for sure.
Yeah, we need those struggles to get to the point of being able to laugh with it, and then it's that same sort of cycle. You get comfortable in that, and then the universe is like, oh well, let's kick it up a notch. Let's make it a little bit more challenging. You think you got it all figured out, like you're ready to expand. Here we go.
There's more.
Yeah, which is, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful how it's all set up too, because it just works. It's perpetual. And it's always growing, and free will just gives it that perfect random attribute to where it's never going to get old. There's no limit to it, and so it is infinite. It's just infinite consciousness, constantly expanding, constantly just adding to the collective experience. There cannot possibly be any limit to it. Like there's no conceivable way for there to be a limit, because as soon as we reach a certain point of understanding about who we are, who God is, then we can throw in whatever sort of free will decides, like, okay, let's do something different. Let's make it weird.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
I don't even know if there's questions or anything. We just
are there any questions coming in?
There haven't been too many questions. I saw.
Well, if anyone has any questions, please put them up.
Siobhan said, is any death premature? What do you think about that?
Is any death premature?
Yeah, because I think you made a comment about COVID, about people prematurely leaving.
I'll use suicide as an example. I believe that we're each having our own experience, right? So there's no wrong and right way to do this, but I believe that we all knew we were coming here. We knew what we were getting ourselves into. We designed a lot of this, wanted certain challenges to come forward, wanted to learn certain things in this incarnation. And if someone wants to step out early, you're probably going to have a review process where afterwards you're going to go, oh, I totally gave up early. Oh, it's like going through major depression or anxiety. A lot of the times it's because of a lack of growth. And someone is struggling so much. We're supposed to grow, we're supposed to evolve. And if we're put in a container and we can't expand and we can't evolve, some people just want to check out and get out of here. So you could say that's premature, but I guess in your review process, or however you choose to look at the in-between life component, then you'd probably set yourself up for a pretty challenging next incarnation if you checked out early. And if it was premature, maybe someone came here to experience suicide or experience being shot or experience something like that. And that's part of what they came here to experience. What a lesson, to experience what that's like and to be on that other side of it. So.
Yeah. I'd echo that last bit. I don't think there's anything that's, and Aaron in the chat said, it's all in the script. Nothing is coincidence or premature, because it's all exactly as it needed to happen. It's not that it's all predefined and we're just going through the motions as robots, but everything needed to happen exactly the way that it did in order to provide whatever comes next, in order to
No mistakes.
give that experience. Yeah, there are no mistakes. There is right and wrong there kind of in the universe and how this is set up, just based on like God's laws, or however you want to portray them. There's the ascension path, and then there's the descension path. Like you can, if you're consciously accruing negative karma, if you're sinning, all of these are just terms for ways to deviate away from the true path upwards. If you're causing harm to others, you're going to descend. And so but even with those, it's not necessarily like a mistake in that sort of way, because whoever that being was needed to experience what the karmic repercussions of going through that path was. They needed to go through and say, okay, this is what it's like when I don't acknowledge the natural laws of the universe, and when I pretend like I can bend and distort them, then these are the repercussions. Like, it's built into the system. God's not this like external judging character that's always trying to make us do whatever or judge us after the fact. It's just built into the system. You do it this way and you reap the rewards. You do it this way, you reap the repercussions. And it's necessary. It has to be set up that way, because these are like the confines to keep the perpetual experience going, to keep that specific entity that we've acquired, this sort of negative antagonist, from ever getting too much in charge, from ever, like we talked about earlier, from ever getting fully in control, because it's just unsatiable and they just devour everything. And so there has to be something built into the system to keep that from happening. And it's funny because their goal, like the fully on that path, is they view God as this figure that's controlling everything, and they've got to break the system. They've got to break these rules and these laws that are firmly in place. And they view it as this controlling entity that they have to thwart at every turn, because they want to pursue their service to self above all else. Which it's just funny that, but they need to believe that. They need to believe that in order to be fully into that way of thinking, when in reality the creation is just set up to perpetually cause that expansion, and it's beautifully balanced. I kind of went on a tangent. I think we kind of deviated away from the question there a little bit, but
okay, it's all relatable.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Anything else in the chat?
Let's see. What if we came here as children? This is from Stacy. What if we came here as children of light to save and show children of dark there is a better way? A third of heaven was deceived and cast down. Were they all bad, or did they need God and us? What if we came here as children of light to save and show children of dark there is a better way? a third of heaven was deceived and cast down. Were they all bad, or did they need God and us?
I think we needed the polarity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there would just be like a flat line. There would be no expansion, really. Like we would just be here on the same frequency, just hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need that.
It would be a flat line graph.
In this experience, we need duality.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I get what she's saying. I don't know about the biblical part because I haven't studied the Bible, and I've opened it a little bit here and there, but I don't know like you do. But with those coming here of light to show those of the dark the path, 100%. There's that term. Some that have come here to be lighthouses, and some have come here to be shepherds, and maybe both. And so I truly believe that some people have come here just to be the light, or just to be a shepherd, or just to be something, and try and maybe help show some of those that are on the negative path what the potential of being on the positive path looks like and what it feels like. Yeah, I think very much that happens.
And vice versa.
Sure.
Yeah.
I kind of look at it as like when I was in grade 9, we had high schools come by in Alberta. Grade 9, you go to grade 10, 11, 12, which is high school. And we had them coming by trying to recruit people. So we had a new school coming by trying to recruit us for football. I wanted to play football. And so they're like, oh, it's a newer school. We got new equipment. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to go to that school. But it's kind of like that. Like we've got recruiters coming in that are going, oh, come this way. Oh yeah, you're going to like this. And that might be the negative. And oh, come this way. The more benevolent, they're going to be more passive. And just, and that looks juicy. I'm going to go this way.
Yeah, it's that internal struggle, personified outward. It's our ego manifest externally and presenting itself in these alluring sort of ways. I mean, it's the deceiver, the deception to try and trick us into that way of being, which is ultimately on that descending path, or we can choose to go up and to the right and go on that ascension path as well. Yeah, so it's all necessary, like at least from this perspective where we need it. It's just a growing mechanism. It's a learning tool to have that split personality, that antagonist, because we're here to complete the hero's journey. And it has to be a fantastical tale. Like it would be boring if we didn't have an antagonist. It would be boring if we didn't have somebody that was trying to thwart our plans at every single turn. So we ask for that. We ask for someone to step in and play that role and say, hey, will you do that for now? And that's what we're playing with right now. And that's what we've got to overcome in order to step past the need for that. And I don't know exactly what it will look like after that point. I can imagine when we graduate past the need for duality and we don't have it anymore. But right now I see it as a very effective learning mechanism to sort of teach us, show us our shadow self and show us that we have to, in order to integrate it, we have to kind of fight it. Like we kind of have to put it in its place and say, no, you're not the boss here. You're not going to take the reins. You're not going to be in charge. And that's that, because the shadow only knows how to fight. And if we get complacent with it, if we don't actively step forward and say, no, you're not going to do that, then it will do it. It'll come back behind us and stab us in the back. And that's just the way that we program this entity, this little piece of software, this dark piece of software that we put into the system that was always going to be just constantly trying to connive us and twist us at every step and turn.
What we can also look at.
No, you're right. Good.
What we can also look at there is how sometimes those on the dark side, on the negative path, when they are interacting with us or showing us something or shining a mirror on us or whatever it might be, it can actually be a great gift, because sometimes we're being shown our Achilles heel. Sometimes we're being shown what some of our greatest weaknesses are when that gets exasperated and we're going through our own internal shitstorm. We can actually go, oh, what a gift. That is one of my weaknesses. That is one of the things I came here to work on. That's one of the things, but oftentimes what we do is we go, oh, I don't want that. And oh, why is it? But it's a gift. It's there already. You're already in the midst of it. That's when you need to dig in and do that inner work and work with someone else and talk to your friends and
That's the time.
detox and do all those things. What's that?
That's the time to do it when you're
it's
right
the
in it.
best
Yeah.
time. But we're not brought up that way. You know, we're brought up that if something doesn't feel right, you know, you should always feel good. You should always no, you shouldn't have to
Just
suffer and
suck it up.
self-entitlement and victim consciousness.
Right.
No, that's not what this life is about. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Anna Dunaway said, how will the ascension process affect children? Same as us or not, because they don't have karmic energy? Not sure if I worded that correctly, she says, but I think we got the gist of it. My take on that is that we're we really need to be looking to children for how to do this better. Children already they come into this world with a lot more activated self because they were just that much more closely coming from that place of ascension. And this is just where we're all going back to. We chose to come here to be in this physical experience, to journey back upwards. My take, and so children are great examples to show us. You know, like I know a lot of people who will ask their children as soon as they learn how to speak, like, hey, do you remember where you came from? Do you remember what your experience was like? Like, try and get as much out of them before the veil really starts to kick hold and lose them. And definitely, you know, don't send them to school. Don't send them to school. School is just going to beat it out of them and educate it out of them. And it's designed to do that way. It's truly designed to get rid of them. So yeah, that's my take on kids. Like, I think they're powerful leaders in this, and we can let them lead us to stepping into this fully. But what do y'all have to say about that?
Yeah, I highly agree. They are present a great 95% of the time. And it's the times when we're constantly pulling them out of the present moment, saying, come over here, or do this thing, or clean your room, or you have to go here, or we have to get groceries, like whatever the thing is. And then 5 seconds later, they're in the present again. And so you're constantly like trying to draw their attention somewhere else. And I think that's why it's so exhausting as adults, because we are so conditioned that they're so in the moment that us trying to follow them in the constant flow, and they move so freely through their emotions and so honestly, they're just so big all the time, and then they move through it quite quickly. And I think that's why we're so exhausted, is because we're, again, so obstructed with our own crap, literally and figuratively. And so they're just like the best teachers in so many ways. And for anyone who is even just a slight bit self-aware, they will magnify that tenfold, and they will call you to be the even better version of yourself. It's like, I laugh to myself because sometimes I think, well, if anyone wants to be, you know, go on a spiritual path, like have a kid, which is kind of like a frivolous thing to say, but it's true. There's nothing more manic, so fulfilling, so incredibly blissful, yet so
many mirrors,
stressful and overwhelming at the same time, because you're going through the self-awareness process, and then you have, you know, your children or your child that's just magnifying everything for you to show it to you even more, just in case you forget.
Yeah.
Because and they're just so honest about it. I love it so much.
Yeah, that's really great.
They're amazing.
I'll add a little for some people that resonate with reincarnation and whatnot, I find the law of one fits really well. So for some people that are worried about their kids, I like to look at it through a law of one lens. And that would be that kids right now are born with a third and fourth density body activated. So they can hold the new vibrations. They would have known when Earth went through it, you know, around 2012 or whenever it went through the big shift in consciousness itself, you know, the Mayan calendar and all that any souls incarnating here would be of that new vibration. And so whatever shift is going to happen, they would already be calibrated for that. So I believe a lot of kids have come here early to experience the disharmony of what we're going through, so that when the shift completes, however that looks, they will be able to carry forward that knowledge of what they experienced in that great shift that was taking place at the end of the ascension process.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. I don't see any other questions at the moment. Do y'all want to keep going? That was 2 hours, or do y'all want to start wrapping up?
I try and get out for a meditation with Star,
Yeah, I gotta put my
partner,
baby
in the
to bed,
morning.
too.
So
I could keep going.
I
but
try and get up nice and early in the morning. I got to beat my baby before she gets up.
Yeah. Yeah, we can go ahead and wrap it up. Oh, Ben's got one question for you, Kyle.
Yeah,
Can you tell us the guiding principle of the law of one?
a guiding principle.
Yeah, that's how he
Yeah,
phrased it.
I would say one of the big principles about the law of one is that we all are one in consciousness. Like we are all individual portions of consciousness. We're all like little holograms of one great hologram, and we are all having individual experiences through these different densities of light. How much light we can hold in our different densities of experience. So first density, earth, wind, fire, water. Second density, plants and animals. Third density, humanoid form. And third density is pick which path you want to go, positive or negative. And then fourth density is on these sides. Fifth and sixth back together to join together, to, like I explained earlier. And so it's really having this awareness that we are one in consciousness, and we are having individual experiences of consciousness until we get to this level of experience. And then it's us joining together to be able to co-create, and then in our future experiences from fourth density and up, you're kind of split into cohorts. And so your positive cohort is experiencing the power of that telepathy. All these different things get activated, the veil gets lifted, and you have experiences of real rich co-creative consciousness experience. And so it's this experience of you're having your individual portion of consciousness and your experience, but you will work your way towards having co-creative, work together to have collective, and then you're utilizing the experience of consciousness through these different levels of experience.
Well
If
said.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that was well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd agree with like, I think there are just some aspects of the law of one where I think are more allegorical and less literal, as far as like the splits between and how things transition and where they come from. But I think the vast majority of it is very truthful as far as how it defines how this experience was set up and how God, how we all agreed and co-created the rules of the game that we are playing, because that's all it is. It's just a game. It's just to have fun, just to play.
Yeah. But I don't get hung up on it has to be the law of one. I obviously resonate with that. I mean, I very much resonate with that, so I can't ignore that. But who knows? 10 years from now, I might look at it a little bit different. I'm sure that there will still be some law of one in there. When I finish this incarnation and I go through my review process, I might go, "Oh, it was just an allegory, completely." But that's okay. It's as long as it's bringing me closer to people, and I really see the oneness in everyone, the oneness in everything. I understand it's all about co-creative and collective consciousness, and I want to play on the side of love and light. So,
Yeah.
There's a phrase that I've taken from the law of one, which is move towards the love, move towards the light. If you don't see it, be it. And if you just keep that in your mind, look for the love, look for the light, and move towards it. That's where your higher self is going to plant seeds for you, synchronicities and all these things. And if you don't see it, be it. Just try your best. I fuck up all the time. I'm always apologizing to my wife because I'm running this old 8 body and sometimes it gets activated. But I try and learn, I try and grow, I try and meditate on it.
Yeah, I don't even think you can see it until you be it. I think you got to have that be first. Be do have kind of mentality. Um, but yeah, for sure. It's all about love and light. It's all about God's light and just following that.
Have some fun and humor with it. It's so important for us to lighten things up right now. Everyone's so damn serious and so
Right,
opposed.
right,
If you really want to have a mask, okay, fine, but don't be pissed off at people that don't want a mask right now.
right.
Stats don't
Exactly.
support masks, like face it. So it's like, let's have fun through this difficult process.
Right. Right, guys. Well, Avalon, do you have any, or both of y'all, do y'all have any closing comments? We didn't really do introductions at the beginning, and so some people were asking like who y'all are and where you're from, and
Oh yeah.
so
Who are these weirdos?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
I dropped that last video, and didn't give much explanation, so I'll give y'all a chance now at the very end of the conversation to do the
Yeah, maybe
introduction.
when you put the video up, say, if you want to know who these people are, look at
Yeah.
2 hours and 5 minutes, and then come back and watch it again.
Yeah, look at the last 5 minutes. Yeah. So
Um,
introduce yourselves. Yeah, please.
I'm Avalin. Introduce myself. I'm a mama of 3 young kids. I used to be with the federal government and I crawled out of that. I'm passionate about things like birth and detoxification and obviously having amazing conversations like this.
You're a doula.
Doula, yep. Kind of dabble into everything, love permaculture, that kind of thing, sustainable living.
Detox is big for you and all these stuff.
Yeah.
And iridology too, you said, right?
Yeah, that goes right in with it. I'm just only scratching the surface of that because that's like a whole gambit of itself. But yeah, I met Kyle serendipitously through a community project type approach.
Yeah.
And yeah, here we are.
And where are y'all physically?
We're in Victoria in BC.
Nice.
British Columbia, Canada.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And how about you, Kyle? Who are you?
I'm still trying to figure that out. But my one of the hats I wear in this lifetime is psychologist, but that's not me. I've worn hats of being a firefighter. I've worn hats of being a physiotherapist, a kinesiologist, lots of academia under my belt. But I'm learning more and more about how much I don't know, especially in the field of consciousness, because you don't learn that in academia. It's one of the biggest shit shows I've ever seen, how academia is so asleep to what consciousness is. So for me, I'm someone that, I grew up, honestly, a racist atheist. I was trained that way by my family, and it was an experience I probably wanted to learn to see what that felt like. I wasn't even academic until after high school. I barely graduated high school, and then went back and upgraded all my marks, found out, wow, I can actually study, went to academia, long line of that. And, I'm at the point now where I'm realizing this is just a big, giant game. I mean, I take it seriously. It's seriously in the sense of I want to do the best I can while I'm in this game. But I'm at the point right now where I'm having so much fucking fun because I've learned how to manifest. I've learned the power of prayer, contemplation, meditation. I've learned how to plug into those energies, how to invoke it and evoke it, and then follow the path of love and light to see the metaphysical seeds that were planted germinate. And it's how we met. I mean, the past 6 months, I've been living as best I can through the law of one and this other material called Handbook for the New Paradigm. Putting those together, trying to follow my intuition and get to learn what my intuition is, because it's been shut off for a lot of years, and then follow the energies to see where the universe is trying to lead me. I don't have to know where I'm going. I just have to open up to it. And what I have found is that this benevolent, loving universe just goes, go that way, go this way. Ooh, stop, inner work time. Okay, go this way. And so I'm just trying to hold on sometimes as this horse is kicking around and I'm trying to break it. But I'm just having fun with it. And my biggest passion right now, I'm moving away from one-to-one work because I find a lot of people are stuck in victim consciousness right now. And what I'm trying to do is a lot more group work and meditation to show people how they can themselves unlock that inner creator inside of them. And I can say that firsthand because that's how I got through my shit, was through those things. I didn't have someone doing therapy on me. I became a psychologist and I'd never even gone to therapy. So it wasn't until I was in school where I thought I should probably go see someone to see what they're doing. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Oh, and I'm also a husband, father of a little beautiful baby girl named Hope that is 1 year and 3 months, that is teaching me so much. And the future is with others. The future is co-creation, living with other people, working with other people, co-manifesting. And that is my biggest passion right now. From a year from now, I could be a garbage man as long as I'm happy. Likely we'll be in Costa Rica farming and maybe having a retreat center. But really it's about just following the love and the light and seeing where it leads me.
It's gonna be so cool to see this in a year from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly. I mean, wow. I was just thinking about this past year, like going from last year to now. Holy shit. That's a big leap. That's a lot of things to go through, just externally and internally for me and all the way out there. But yeah, it's been a wild
Oh
ride
yeah.
for sure.
What a ride, hey?
Yeah.
And here we are together.
Here we are together. Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. It's
Yeah,
it's
thanks for
really
hosting, Justin.
yeah,
Yes.
it's really an honor. It's really an honor, and I love like being this sort of representation of this is what conversation should look like. And not
Yeah.
that saying any, to make anyone do any certain thing, but this is where we truly feel expanded, is when we're allowed to speak. We don't always have to agree on everything, and we just get to unpack and just go and dive and dive deeper. Just keep going deeper, just deeper, deeper, deeper. Let's
We're
get
all
off.
moving in the same direction.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Let's get off the surface talk. Let's not talk about the weather anymore. Let's go deep. Let's get in real deep. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're leading by example in that area. So I want to thank you for what you're doing. When I met
Thank
you
you.
a few years ago, it was we were at Dimensions of Disclosure, and synchronistically ended up eating outside a little trailer and started having a talk about the law of one. These are the people we're meant to meet along the pathway, and so many people are missing these opportunities. So I really invite people to open up. The universe is so benevolent. I mean, there's lots of energies out there, but it's so benevolent, and it's just waiting for us to seek and to ask and to want to connect. If you have the intention that you want to meet, my wife calls it your peeps. I've been out here in Victoria for 5 years now, and I used to always be like, I can't find my peeps because I've changed. And now she's like, Kyle, you have so many peeps. Like, you have so many people that you connect with now, and it's true. But if you put it out there, you'll find it, and you'll connect with your people.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, each day is just wow. It's like I'm in a dream. It's beautiful. What a beautiful ride. I'm so glad y'all are on it too. So honored to be sharing this ride with you. Thank you.
Thank
Feel
you.
the same way, bro.
So wonderful.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll go ahead and close out for the night. I love you
All
both
right.
dearly, and until next time,
Love you too, bro.
we'll talk to you
Yeah.
then.
Okay, take care. And bye to everyone, and thanks for watching. And
Yeah. Thank you guys
get
for
out there
joining.
and start your own little groups and conversations.